Nigel Farage, in the absence of a limit, could we now stop Romania and Bulgaria joining?
Well, it's exactly what we ought to do because, we're talking about the common market, the European Union, reference has been made going back to 1973. This was all fine. It's OK to have free movement of goods and services between countries, but to have the free movement of peoples between countries with massively differing GDPs is bound to lead to mass migration. Now, in the case of Bulgaria and Romania, it seems that in percentage terms, the numbers that will come to Britain will be even greater than we've had from Poland and Lithuania and the other countries. And I think this government should veto the accession of Bulgaria and Romania to the European Union. That is a minimum first step. And I'm amazed that we've got three political parties in this country, the Labour, Lib Dems and Conservatives, who all think it's fine to have an open-door immigration policy to 450 million people. I think it's mad.
Polly Tom, did I see you nodding there? Are you agreeing with that?
I think you've got to let Bulgaria and Romania in, but we can do what most of Europe did with the last ones.
Yeah.
Well,
why?
If you want a fundamental argument about the nature of Europe, it's not this programme. I mean, Europe must embrace, in the end, Turkey, particularly, to show that we are not just, a tiny little group of rich nations. But I think when it comes to the movement of people, you must try and delay that bit of it until they catch up quite a bit. You can't have the whole of the poorest part of Turkey or the whole of Bulgaria and Romania able to move until Europe has done what Europe does do so well, which is to increase their economies enormously.
We should be postponing that open-door work policy, should we?
The government hasn't taken the decision yet. I think it's also worth bearing in mind that Poland and other Eastern European countries are ageing societies. They're ageing actually much faster than we are. And so this trend for migration to come across from Poland will lessen. And in fact, the process will reverse. As Poland gets richer, people will go back, our people will go and work in Poland, and we will benefit from the economic and cultural and trade links that we forged in this period. Now, there is a question about Romania and Bulgaria, and clearly that hangs in the balance in government at the moment. I don't think we should be seeing it as a threat that it's being posed as. And the model that the European Union has, which basically says, open your borders between people, invest in development, allow countries to build stable, democratic, law-bound democracies, and join in prosperity is a vital one.
The trouble is, you're talking about delayed gratification. At the moment, we have, as we saw in that report, people who feel their communities are being eroded, people who feel they can't get jobs, people who feel that the minimum wage is being pushed even further down because of cheap labour, and people who feel that they're not getting adequate public services, and councils who are telling us they're at full stretch to provide that.
Well, I think if you look actually at local services, most of these migrants are young people. They don't really have many children. They're not using social housing because they're not entitled to it. They can't claim benefits. Now, there may be some pressure on local services, of course, but one of the problems here is we have a very centralised system of local government finance, so they have to go with their begging bowl to central government. If you look at the figures nationally, migrants pay in more in tax and take out less relative to the rest of the population, so we should get it in perspective.
But what we need to do is to make sure that in those communities who've been most affected by this change, that they should get a fair deal out of the system.
Absolutely, you're totally right. And what we haven't got, for instance, is a proper work inspector. It's extraordinary.
Exactly.
Most countries in Europe do. We have nobody checking that people are being paid the minimum wage.
Absolutely.
That they are
and we should connect that
let me
to
just bring
making sure that people have the right to work as well.
A work inspectorate, if the government set up, as it has suggested, some migration advisory board, would that reassure you? Nigel Farage?
No, it would not. It would not. We've got to get to the core of this. The vast majority of people that are coming to live and settle in Britain are coming from within the European Union. So it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what we say. We cannot stop anybody from the European Union coming to live and work in Britain, even if they're convicted criminals. There's nothing we can do about it. And what we should be doing is, yes, of course, let's have a trading relationship with our European neighbours, but let's get back control of our own borders. Otherwise, frankly, there's no point having this debate.
Fiona McTaggart, let me ask you about this sea change that we seem to be getting from John Reid now. A year ago, when Michael Howard was talking about immigration, it was called a pernicious offensive by Charles Clarke, who you worked under whom you worked. And now suddenly we're being told we should have this mature debate. Is this a concession that
Absolutely
things have not gone according to plan?
Michael Howard was running a pernicious and offensive campaign, and there is no doubt about this. Talking about immigration is a very sensible piece of public policy. I have done it for all my adult life, and I actually have always felt that this myth that somehow it's racist to talk about people's anxiety about immigration and not to actually have this debate is silly. And I do not believe that that is the point that Charles Clarke was making.
Polly Tormey, let me ask you, do you think something will change?
I think it's difficult to see exactly what in policy terms. I'm suspicious that John Reid was sort of making a big Sunday papers noise, and actually his speech tomorrow is going to say very little, and because there isn't very much policy change he can make. They do have to make an important policy decision about Bulgaria and Romania, and I don't think he's going to make that tomorrow. But you're right, of course, the whole of Europe is talking about immigration. It's a very important issue. The whole of the world is talking about immigration. The world is on the move. It's a difficult problem. It's not going to go away.
OK. Thank you all very much indeed.